Hello, this is Lisa LaRose here on Connect to Love on PRNFM, and I am joined by Michael J. Russ. I am so excited because you inspire me, and yesterday was your birthday, and it was a celebration of your entry here on this planet, and I just want to celebrate you for just a minute because it's an auspicious thing. A friend of mine once said to me, it's the day your soul came to choose what it was going to do here on this earth. And I truly believe that that's what you are living, that mission. You live and breathe it, and I just want to welcome you and celebrate you. So
thank you.
And
thank you so much.
It segues so nicely into. I started. We had the passing of a really an icon, an inspirational icon, Miss Tina Turner, and I wanted to sort of learn more about her life. I thought, geez, you have these people you kind of take for granted in the world, and they're kind of always there. And then when they leave the planet, you think, wow, I never took the time to really learn more about who this person was. And there was a quote. I started listening to a book that she wrote called Happiness Becomes You, A Guide to Changing Your Life for Good. And she wrote the book in her 80s. She was talking about reflecting on 80 decades. And there was a quote that she has in the beginning of the book that says, each of us is born, I believe, with a unique mission, a purpose in life that only we can fulfill. We are linked by a shared responsibility to help our human family grow kinder and happier. And I believe, Michael, you are certainly working towards that every day. You live and you have a very unique mission, and you're starting to sort of refine it and discover it and really evolve. And I think that one of the things and I'm not very far into the book, so I can't say very much, but I do know from what I have read so far is that she had very tough beginnings. She had came from Nutbush, and she had not a good family life. She was sort of shuttled between individuals. She was encouraged through one set of family members to sing in the choir, and that was really sort of how she found part of what her mission was. And it was really amazing, I think, because no matter what trials that she faced, and she definitely had some obstacles. And at one point, I know that she had tried to take her own life, and there was a reason that she came back. She did not fulfill that unique mission. She did have a greater purpose in life, and I think the world would have been such a less colorful place without her in it, and each one of us.
Yeah.
So, and I'd love to hear, you are kind of on that journey, and I know that there are some things that she wrote that inspired you, and I'd love to hear what your thoughts are about that, Michael. Each of us is born, I believe, with a unique mission.
Yeah, I'm not the only one. Come on, each of us has one. Let's just establish that right now. Yesterday was the first day I celebrated not only me coming in, but my guide, my partner in life. Actually, we together, came into this existence, and which is, just for our listeners, this is not something that I have to believe or whatever. It's an absolute fact that all 8 billion of us on this planet and this earthly plane have a guide that enters this life with us, and their mission is to help us actually achieve our soul's intentions and to kind of guide us to the good thought, to think the good thought whenever we're confused, whenever we are in a situation where we need to make decisions, to get us to focus on happiness, joy, and kindness, love, and at all times, and they can try to massage the thoughts and hope that you make the right choice, or you can actually learn how to connect with them and then be in concert with them in making choices and decisions as you go through life. Now, interestingly enough, I turned 65 yesterday, but I don't think I call it 6.5 decades. Old, because it doesn't sound as long as people think, but I like to tell people I've forgotten about more experiences than people have had in their lives. I've forgotten more, and it's so true. I come through every once in a while, look at something, I go, wow, yeah, I had that experience. And the beautiful thing about it is that we all have these experiences. Now, Tina, what made her so unique is how she had been a Buddhist for 25 years. And in my view, that had a lot to do with how she was able to so gently and delicately move through life to her last breath. Her mother and father, she is quoted as saying her mother and father didn't love each other, so they were always fighting. And she didn't get to spend a lot of time with her kids. That was one of her. If she had any regrets, that was one of them. That she, however, I don't live in a world of regret. I know you don't either. Living in a world of regret is a very dark place, because it means that you're always fighting to relive something you can't relive, and that doesn't make any sense. But what we can do is we can begin in this moment to live differently, to think differently about ourselves and our life. And this is the first birthday I've had where I actually had a knowledge and understanding of the fact that I do have my guide working to connect and gain some level of higher level of trust with my guide with regard to what I'm being told and what I'm hearing in my head, things of that nature. And it's made it very, very interesting. It's made it very, it's making life very unique. And for me, I am, just say all listeners, fellow listeners, if you had the opportunity to ask, why am I here? Why? What is my purpose? What is my intention? And you actually received. Now, there are many intentions. There's not just one. There are many, many intentions. And in my view, every time I go, I connect with someone, an individual. I feel it is my intention to spread kindness, love, positive energy, hope, optimism, all of those things, to convey all of that in a very, very, very brief period of time when I connect with someone. And love and those things, joy, letting them know that being an example that you can live from love and joy and kindness and feel good about yourself and what you're in your life. So one of the things that I do is that is one of my intentions, and I've been doing that for a very long period of time. So a lot of pieces of this puzzle of my life are kind of like falling into place. And I'm now understanding, where it is that what I'm supposed to be doing, and I'll be doing some other things we'll talk about on a future show. However, Tina was somebody who was incredibly gifted. I know in the book, what I'm interested in finding out as you read the book is at which point she. You mentioned that she had with one family. She was guided to sing in the church choir, and where I'm sure she kind of discovered her skill and ability to be able to sing. But the point I'm interested in is the point where she pivots from that to seeing it as a full-fledged career for herself. And we all, people have talked about her trials and tribulations with Ike and the troubled relationship that they had. And how she left it, and that's kind of been put out there in the public realm. But the book, I'm sure, will talk about. She will talk about some things that weren't put out in the public realm. And I'm always interested in those transformational stories.
Yeah. You know, one of the things that was interesting, Michael, is she talked about not having a phone and that, you know, she had to learn to project her voice. And she said, you know, to be able to, like, you know, she said that was one of the things that sort of shaped her voice. And she said, you know, she had a lot of power in her voice. She said she ran track. I mean, a lot of things, cheerleading, things that you never, you know, like you said, you only hear one side of the story.
Oh, yeah.
What people focus on, what they kind of anchor into, and not where she came from. And she said, you know, even being out in the fields and picking cotton or picking strawberries and enduring the heat, those were things that she looked back on 80 decades later, right?
8 decades, right?
With, really loving and understanding why every aspect of it became her. And you know, I think in the beginning her name was Anna Mae, and it was Ike who changed her name to Tina and kind of gave her that persona. But I think it's sort of interesting because at some point, even for each one of us, we are this awareness, this consciousness, this soul. And as that soul chooses whatever that life mission is and chooses to come into physical form in this body, and we are given a name, right? We are given a name, and that becomes who we are. And really that is, it takes on that personality, that is that name. So for her, you know, she had this, somebody sort of chose who she was by this persona. You're going to change who you are, and you're going to become this on stage. And, you know, I think for her it was breaking, when she broke away from that, and it was through chanting and really going and looking inward, that she was able to kind of nourish her soul and really gain an awareness of who she was, and the fact that she could write songs herself. I mean, you know, she had always been dictated to, and all of these little things that sort of kind of pushed her, you know, further and further away from this path that other people were trying to control, to really finding who she was. And then she started finding, you know, not that she didn't have difficulties, but more positive experiences, and as you said, more compassion and love, and sort of like finding her own soul song. And was there a quote, Michael, that you had read that she said about a soul song? And I apologize, I can't recall what it was. A soul song. Did she say something about having a soul song? Or I'm trying to think of where I read that. I don't know, but I do believe each one of us has a song to our soul, and we all have, I agree with you, we all have guides. We come here on this earth plane not alone, and it's basically reconnecting to that. And so one of the ways that I know that you have been able to connect and gain an awareness is through meditation and finding that quiet place and really sort of becoming in communion and recognizing that there is something more to Michael J. Russ, that there is this other identity with your soul that you have, sort of I always call it like the boys in the band. You know, you've got this symphony of other orchestrations that are sort of playing and creating this tapestry that is your life. And I'd love to hear your thoughts. Maybe share a little bit about that, what that looks like for the audience, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, I mean, the various facets of everything that I do and are involved in. Is that what you're referring to?
Right.
Yeah.
It's multi-layered, right? Everybody.
Yeah, it is, because it's multi-layered, multidimensional. It's something that the average, in my view, the average person never really digs deep into pursuing the things that they have an interest in, that they that they find interesting. We kind of live in a world where it's like everything is, your whole life is funneled down to finding something you can do for a living, going out and buying the house and the cars, raising a family, sending them off to college, and then retiring, right? And a lot of people during the phase of what I call the accumulation phase, after they get out of school and they find a job, and then they either do or don't find a partner in life. If they do, they marry them. They have, the whole idea is your family wants you to have kids, children. Mothers want grandchildren. So there's a lot of societal pressure and family and peer pressure to actually move a certain way. And it's an interesting individual that decides that's not it. I've never had kids. This is by choice. Been married twice. However, I told both women, I'm not interested in having kids. If that's something you want, you'd better find somebody who does. I don't. This is not a life where kids are involved. It's more of a me thing, where I'm, moving through. I've done a lot of things in a lot of lives, and this is my opportunity to focus on myself. Focus on and others from a perspective of, I have to learn what love and joy and kindness and happiness means to me, and then I can project that out to other people, and then I can share. It's sort of a vibe. I got to get the vibe myself, as like I say, and that's kind of what I've been doing my whole life, is getting the vibe myself. And I can look back now in 65 years and see how every little nuance of what happened to me helped me to be the person I am today and give me the launching pad for the person I evolve into tomorrow. And because I've spent a lot of introspective time looking at it and seeing how the decisions my mother made, the decisions my father made. And with Tina Turner, literally, I just read something for her, which is, she said, I don't hate myself anymore. I used to hate my work, hate that sexy image, hated those pictures of me on stage, hated the big raunchy person, that big raunchy person on stage. I'm acting the whole time I'm there. As soon as I get out of those songs, I'm Tina again. Now that's interesting. And the question is, who's Tina? That's an interesting question to me. It's not the music and all the other stuff, but Ike, her foray with Ike, really was I'm not a person who believes that anybody we're with that guides us in life, that moves us in a certain direction or others, is a coincidence. One of her soul's intentions was to get together with Ike. As bad as it was a transformational period for her, and that transformation came with some negatives, right? So one of her soul's intentions could have been that she gets together with Ike, she has that traumatic situation so that she knows what she doesn't want in life and what she does, and then moves off on her own, and she became a much bigger star than Ike could ever been. And the question, of course, then is, for her, it's not what's happening on stage. And I got this impression, and I love this about people who are in the public eye. They don't adopt that as their persona, as their identity. I don't get a feeling that that Tina Turner, the onstage charismatic singer, bellowing singer, and dancer, was her identity. It was just an identity for a period of time that she assumed, but she herself, she came to grips with who she was as a person. And that's why I'm saying that in my view, that her 25 years of Buddhism helped ground her, helped give her a basis for being a wonderful human being, a kind, loving, compassionate, empathetic human being, and that she was able to somehow transcend all that negativity earlier in life and her growing up. It's an interesting world. The world becomes extremely very interesting when your life, when you start looking back on your life, and instead of regretting and wishing that hadn't happened or wishing you hadn't had that experience, that you say, okay, how does this fit into my life narrative? How does this make me who I am today? And be appreciative and thankful for it and grateful for it. Forgiving yourself for anything that you did or said that was that you feel was inappropriate. Forgiving the actions of others, but knowing the fact that if that action hadn't happened, you wouldn't have been the person you are today. So my layers, how that fits in is very simple. My mother saw me beating on chairs at 7. She got tired of it, being, rhythmic on furniture all around the house, and took me to the Officers Club drummer and said, here, I think he needs drum lessons. He's always beating on things. Now, 65 years later, I'm still beating on things. I'm beating on the steering wheel of my car rhythmically with every song that comes on. Drives my girlfriend crazy. I'm still doing it. I'm still tapping.
It's part of it's part of you. It's part of who you are in this incarnation. And I think some may sound cliche, but there's a rhythm to your soul. Michael, there is, and you're tuning into it, and you're moving. I think you may actually use it as a way of moving energy through, and you're tuning into a vibration, and you're anchoring it in, and and it's like there's lots of different beats in a lot of musical compositions, but which one are you tuning into? And I think it's a great metaphor for life. Because in the cacophony of the day, with all these different things vying for your attention, what are the things that resonate with you that you're focusing on that go, oh, that caught my eye, I'm going to pay attention to that. And I think that that's really what it is, because there are things that you are going to notice. And she said that in her book. She said her son came home, and she was going through a difficult time, and he said, you really, there's this thing going on, and I want you to come to this chanting thing with me. And she's like, oh, well, I'd really like to do that, but I've got to do this. And so she put it off. And then she said Ike came home with this strange woman. He said he was always showing her off, and this woman happened to be a Buddhist who was involved in chanting. So it was like the universe was saying, okay, well, you didn't pay attention to it when your son brought you the message, but so we're going to bring it back to you in this other
It's so spot on. This is what I was talking about earlier, about our guides finding a way to gently nudge us on the right path, right? We didn't pay attention to the first time.
Shivers when you say that.
Yeah, our guides are looking to nudge us to the better thought, to the better action, right, for ourselves, and because that better action is in line with what one of our soul's intentions, right? That's what it's about. And we all want, where we want to go, where we want to grow, how we want to, where we're supposed to be. Our guides know past, present, and future, so it's a function of they know what we have set out to do, and they're here to really hold us to that task and to attempt to keep us on track, although free will does move in. So when we know we're on the wrong track by the way we feel. I've always said this.
Right.
If you make a decision and you don't feel good as you're moving with that decision, whatever that is, if you decide to go take a job somewhere and you didn't listen to your heart or your gut, or you didn't listen to the way you felt about it when it was offered to you or anything else, and you went and did it anyway, right? The guide's not here to say you're moving in the wrong direction. It's up to you to say, hey, to realize that you're not feeling good when you're not feeling joy, happiness, love, friendship, companionship, none of those things. You're not feeling kindness. You're not feeling those things when you're doing what you're doing. So it's up to you to make a change when you know that you've made a decision that's not right. I was thinking about something just a second ago while you were talking, and because you asked about the multiple layers and stuff like that. My mother never stopped us from trying things, and I know other parents have done the same thing. It's like if you see a soccer thing and you want to try that, okay, go try that. You don't have to commit to it for a lifetime. Just go try it. Who knows? You may like it. You may not. And if you don't like it, go try something else, dance or ballet for a young lady or a guy, or music or this instrument or that instrument or whatever it may be, art. You pick up a pencil or pen and do it. See if it works. Go to an art class and see if it resonates with you. A lot of people don't get that. And then yet again, the actual statement that parents make that is, in my view, one of the biggest killers of dreams and creativity and curiosity is there's no money in that. You can't make a living doing that, right? It's a thought virus that just wipes out everything. It's like the atom bomb of thought viruses when it comes to creativity or an inspiration and curiosity. We have to be curious. I realized something today when I was taking a walk, and I'm going to tell you what it is, because my guide made me aware of this, and that I've been doing this all my life. And I love architecture. I can be walking and I can look at things that other people would just pass by. The tree, okay, a spruce. Mm-hmm. The beauty of the way a spruce or a cypress, the leaves, the structure of the tree. I can walk by it and look at it and go, wow, how cool is that? How, and just basically love on it for a moment. Love the way it looks, right? Mm-hmm. The softness of the branch structure and it's just amazing stuff. And then I can look at other things, but I will find the thing that I can pay attention to and love on for a moment. That is what I've always done. No matter where I am, I'm walking down the street in a city somewhere in Europe, and my girlfriend's gone, "What are you looking at?" I'm looking at the way that building arches over, the way that was some serious work. I was in New Orleans and I saw this opening to this building that must have been, 150 years old. And it had this green marble, carved green marble entrance to this building. And I said, look at that. I'm sitting there having a cocktail, kitty corner at a bar, kitty corner to this place. And I said, look at that. Look at that. It is so beautiful. It's like the way that the arch was constructed with faces and other things. This is green marble, for Christ's sakes. Who did that? Who had that vision? And looking at the rest of the building, I just love buildings with character. And I'll look at buildings. I'm walking down the sidewalk, and I'm looking at a building that's for sale. It's dilapidated. And I look at the doors, and I'm going, do you see those 10-foot doors with the arches at the top? And she looks at the whole building. She goes, that place is falling apart. I said, yeah, but did you see the door? It's like, yeah, did you see that door? Because the building, and I kind of get this vision in my mind.
Michael, I just can't. I'm just smiling like beyond belief. We can't even imagine.
Forget about that. What are you seeing? I'm seeing this door, and I'm thinking that would look really cool refinished. Quite frankly, if somebody should buy that place and just bring it back to life as the wonderful building. When these buildings are, they're only about 20 feet wide, 3 stories tall. Big, tall windows. That's why they built buildings back then. They've got 14-foot ceilings, and they're just gorgeous, right? Lots of plaster work and other things. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you walk in and you're like, wow.
Yeah, I mean, if you walk into my yard or my house, I find pieces of old metal and carved wood, and it's like there's so much beauty in it, and
mm-hmm.
there's
you can't throw it away.
I can't. And it's crazy because I find ways to incorporate it into different things. And even when I was a kid, I was smiling because I grew up in Western Canada where there's a plethora of birch trees, and the way that the bark, and I was always so fascinated, like you could peel it off, and it was like it was already had a story, but you could write on it, or the Indians use it to use on their canoes, and there was just there was something about the textures in the forest. And just recently, I tuned into, he's a biologist in North Carolina. His name's Dr. Adrian Smith, who photographs and captures insects in very slow motion. It is the most beautiful, fascinating thing to see how they extend their wings and how they take flight. It's like watching ballet. It is. I'll send. I'll post it, because and when I was a kid, we had a pool, so there would inevitably, when you'd skin the pool in the morning, there would be an abundance of bugs. And I was so fascinated by these bugs. I'm like, look at this one, look at this one. People like, what is wrong with you? But and you talk about architecture, or whatever it is, the structures and nature. And to me, that's like nourishing my soul. I don't know
exactly
all the different things that brought me to this point, but that's a big part of it. I've always been fascinated with the details and things, and it sounds as though you were as well. And
I agree.
I do want to make one comment, because you were talking about how things unfold and trusting in the process. So in December, I was driving across a bridge in the city of Pittsburgh, and I saw a billboard, and the billboard was for Carol Collins, the Pittsburgh medium. And I thought, I don't know who that is. Never heard of her before.
She had her own billboard?
Yeah, she had a billboard. It was at the end of the bridge, and I thought, and it was, I looked at it. Putting out a sign, it couldn't be a bigger sign to sit right in front of me at the end of a bridge, but I didn't really, I got busy with other things, and I believe I told you I had an event that I had signed up for, and the morning of the event, I really didn't feel like going. I just, but I put my big girl pants on, and I got up, and who was there but Carol Collins? And I had the opportunity, because things got a little quiet. I thought, well, I'll have a 15-minute session. And then I thought, no, you know what? I deserve a half an hour. And it was the most fascinating time. And from that, she invited me to be part of one of the class series, and she gave me a copy of her book, Ocularity, and I started reading it, and I shared a conversation, and then it piqued your curiosity, and then we had her on the show, and then one thing led to another, and it's all, I look at the sequence of events for both of us, and why things unfolded the way that they did, and it's. Go ahead, please. I'd love for you to fill in the blank.
The beauty here of it is that you can. The question that comes to my mind is, what if the reason that you and I started doing this show over a year and a half ago is so that we could get to this point where we met Carol Collins, and
quite possibly
look at what's happened since I've become aware of Carol Collins, and how it kind of tied into me finding one of my soul's intentions, following it, moving forward, and kind of filling in the blanks of some of the whys that I've been asking, oh my gosh, since I was 24. Since I was 24, actually it was more than before that. I think it was since I was 19 years old. I've been wondering, what am I supposed to do here? Why am I here? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Interestingly enough, if you'd have told me when I was 19, I wouldn't have been ready for the answer.
Right.
I had to go through all these things, marriage number 1, marriage number 2, relationship breakups, relationship initiations, all these things, and the work that I had been doing, playing music as a DJ and having a business. I can name 100 different things. The point is that the beauty of our lives is that we can kind of trace the little stepping stones back to how things that we thought that were just coincidences were actually serendipitous, and led us to a particular point in time where we are now, and all the experiences along that journey. And I know people who that's not the way they think. They don't think that way. They think they live in a world of again, regret and angst about the past and why this didn't go right and why that didn't go right, and I wish I hadn't made that decision, and if I coulda, woulda, shoulda. This is the world that they live in, and I'm like, gosh, how can you enjoy the moment? Be kind to who you're encountering, share love, be loving of yourself. How can you be the energy, the ball of energy that and light that you're supposed to be when you are so focused on something you can't change that actually helped get you where you are today? I mean, let's start here now. This is I call it bookmarking. You bookmark where you are right here. Forget the rest. You bookmark. Put that bookmark right here. This is where you start. This is when how your thoughts change in this very moment is going to determine what your life is going to be like going forward. So you have to literally bookmark it. Same thing when you set a goal, a goal of weight loss. Forget the fact that you tried 19 other things and it didn't work. Bookmark where you are today and take that and use it as a lesson of, okay, there's something else. You don't let it jade you about trying something new. And then, because if people always say, it didn't work. I've tried everything. Really? You've tried everything. Information is constant. It's always unfolding in life. And the people you meet, the next person you meet, if you decide to change your thought to bookmark the past right then and there, I'm going to be in the present, the next person that you meet may be because you forgot about the past. You let it go. Because you shift your thoughts. And this is the nuance that fascinates the heck out of me. It's the nuance that serendipitous kind of thing occurs, or that thing you thought was, the billboard you saw that was meant for you, right? Maybe my guide's getting together with your guide and saying he needs to be there. Show her the billboard because she lives in Pittsburgh. She'll tell him, and then they'll have her on the show. I mean, listen, this is the way this unfolds. And then, boom, this new world really opens up. I'm fascinated by that. I get energized by that. I had a gentleman talk to me yesterday. It's funny because I have a good friend that I'm always meeting people in the strangest places. And I love the way it always happens the same, either a restaurant or a bar, okay, because that's where people gather.
Right.
So I'm in Jamaica at this resort. Last year before last, I'm in this resort and in Jamaica, and it's the day we're leaving. And I run across, we had just eaten breakfast, and there was a couple sitting over at another two-top over, in the restaurant. And something about this guy, he was doing something, and what I normally do to initiate a conversation is I look at them and I make a statement or a comment acknowledge something about them that I think is really cool. And I kind of did that. Can't tell you exactly what it was, but I did that. And we ended up talking until it was time to go get the luggage, when we discovered he and his wife were there for another week. They had been there for a week already, and we were leaving, and they were staying another week. And I said, look, she says, man, this is really cool. It's too bad we didn't meet a little earlier. However, let's connect when we get back. And every month or so, I have a conversation with him. And he told me something, and we're going to end up traveling together because he and his wife are really, really awesome people. He's English and self-made man, and he lives in different places around the world, and for a year or two, and just to experience them and discover them, and then he moves somewhere else. He goes and finds another place to hang out, and because she works out of the house and he doesn't work. So internet connection is all you need. But he said, I couldn't talk to you last week because we had some friend over. And let me just tell you about this friend. There's a friend of his wife's. She came over for a couple of days, and he said, Michael, he says, you wouldn't believe it. Her energy was so bad. It was so bad. Yeah. He said she came over. I don't know what was going on with her. And evidently they didn't want to ask because they didn't want to open that can of worms. However, he said, man, it was terrible. We couldn't wait for her to leave. And luckily, she said, Saturday she was going to stay a couple of extra days, but then Sunday she said, no, I got to leave today. And they were both going, oh, yeah, thank you very much. I'm so glad you're leaving, because she was a downer on the weekend. And then he turns, he says, Michael says, I just want to let you know something. My conversation with you here today, because I talked to him for about 20 minutes, was the complete opposite. You are so full of energy, so full of life. I love talking to you. And he says, I just want you to know that. And I said, well, I appreciate you letting me know that. And I was, by the way, when I was talking to him, I was cleaning a horse stall. That's what I was doing.
Yeah.
And so it's like most people would look at it and say, I'm cleaning a horse stall. I'm doing the worst job in the world. No, I'm having fun cleaning the horse stall. It's like therapy, cathartic for me. To do something, and then I can look at my finished work and let the horse back in, give her a carrot, and it's just awesome. I'll find joy and beauty in the simplest of things, in the most basic of things, and in my view, that is what we're supposed to be doing. That's what life is about.
100%. Yeah, Tina Turner said that in the book. That was really, I actually wrote this down because she said, if there's one lesson I've learned, it's that encountering adversity as I have isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's what we make of it and how we use it to shape ourselves and our future that ultimately determines our success and happiness. And she also talked about, the mud being thicker where the lotus blooms, and that when it does to reach the sun, it's stronger. And she said the same is true for people. And I don't know if you're familiar with Ram Dass. He was a guru that Wayne Dyer quoted a lot. And I think that it's so interesting because he had always been about, the psychology and the soul and the lessons. And then when he was 65, he had a massive stroke. And at first, he was really depressed after the stroke. But then it was like all of a sudden, all of this wisdom emerged. It was for him the mud. Because he was paralyzed, he had always been so focused on the body, he actually had to focus on inner wisdom. And it was so interesting because what he talked about is just being patient, that it's when it's time for you to wake up, and that it's part of your journey to carry you on to the next step. And to acknowledge that and to really see it as a gift. And I think Tina did that. I think you exemplify that. I try to do my best every day. I mean,
you do it. Don't give me this try stuff.
I think to myself, I thought, I finally have some time. And then, a newborn kitten shows up on my life with the placenta attached. And next thing you know, I'm feeding, going to the store and getting formula and doing feedings and
you're
whatnot.
A caretaker being.
It is. You absolutely are right. It is.
You're a caretaker.
Dharma. It is.
Yeah,
they find me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You've got such positive
my mother
energy.
had a friend whose mother was the same. That she used to, during the Depression, she used to take care of tramps that would go by, and the tramps, if you were a good cook, they would put an X at the house so people knew the next person when they came along. And I think that animals do that with me. I think there's a
very good
little
point.
X somewhere.
I told you
know.
the meow when I sent you a text the other day. I said the meow is out. The meow meaning the word is out. The meow is out. They meow and they say, "Hey, come over here. She got you. You need some food. Come to this one." I mean, it is really, really true. But you're so kind, so caring, so loving with little furry beings.
Thank you for saying that.
And it's interesting because we're currently living vicariously through a good friend of ours who got a new corgi puppy, little female puppy. who's about 6 weeks old right now. And she is more adorable than you can possibly imagine, and reminds us of the umpteen corgis that we've raised. And the fact that how wonderful it is to have those little companions running around, running amok, causing all kinds of trouble, and how they grow into really smart, confident, and very communicative dogs, with a vocabulary that is pretty amazing. And so, yeah, we're I when it comes to pet, I've got a little cat who's been hanging out with me during the show, who decided to go get a little mushroom chair that we have and, do some more nap time for 2-3 hours before dinner. But that I like loving on this wonderful little creature. I realize that now in my life there are other priorities, other things that I need to be doing. Travel amongst them, and having it's a challenge. I don't want to actually go with being selfish because I want a dog, and knowing that when I'm going to leave for a week or two, I've got somebody else that has to take care of it. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. It's like, right. I'd love to have a corgi. I'd love to have another corgi, but it takes 2 years to get them to the point where they're self-reliant and just wonderful when they're fully trained. 2 years. And I'm like, I have to sit at home for 2 years to, work with this little furry creature to help them in this world. And neither of us agree that we have any more time for that. So there are other priorities that actually come up. But the kitten, I told somebody the other day, if you have control issues, get a cat. It'll help alleviate those control issues, because you can't control a cat. And you have to have a little being in your life that you can't order around, because you can't order a cat around. It's like, no. They're on their own. They're in their own little world. They're little aliens running around with their own idea of life. Which takes me back to one thing we started talking about a little earlier with regard to curiosity. It's the thing, that one word can move mountains. Curiosity. We lose our curiosity if we are stuck in rigidity. If we're forced into a rigid atmosphere where we're outside the box thinking. Just curiosity. Just why is that? Why is this? Why is that? When that kind of thinking is frowned upon, because it doesn't conform to get you through whatever school or class or whatever it is that you're doing. But the people who are most creative are the ones like Tina Turner, discovering that she could write songs. I think that's awesome.
Right.
Really amazing. I've attempted to write a song, by the way. It's just not something that I was put on this planet to do.
Well, I'm sure that you could do it. And you got lots of people that you could collaborate with, for sure.
Oh, yeah, right. I could.
When you talk about imagination, though, I listened to Jim Quick, who I really enjoy his book Limitless, and talking about the brain. And one of the things he talked about was imagination. He said, when we're in school, we are taught to learn by rote method, and you repeat, and it's extremely boring, and things are. And he said, and one of the tricks that he uses, and for him, the boy with the broken brain, he couldn't learn through rote, but he could through the imagination. So when he would utilize, he would start to see pictures. And he said, he talked about the periodic tables, that, for instance, if you had oxygen, you would think ox. And if you would see nitrogen, you'd think of a knight in shining armor. And that was ways, and he said, and you have all of these different things. But I really thought about it, because sort of in the tapestry of my life, I have done that. And I think I anchor things in visually. And they're just, and I think that's what even Tina Turner, when she was she talked about being in the field, picking things. She said, she didn't consciously think about having a dream, like, what do I see myself on stage? But eventually it became, she had this sort of bridge in the distance. Like, she knew that she enjoyed movies, and so she would go to a show, and then she'd come home and she'd act the whole thing out for her family, and it was so realistic, and it was something that really resonated with her. For you, it's tapping a rhythm out on a steering wheel, and you don't know, and you kind of ask an open-ended question, like, if tapping on a steering wheel would open another door for you, in what direction, what would that look like? I don't know. Do you know? Maybe Jeremiah knows. I don't know. And I think when you live in that magical world of curiosity and I don't know, I'm sure you will look back and go, I get it. I get why that is showing up in my life. Yeah.
The second thing that really stumps most people when it comes to employing their curiosity and their imagination is the word how. It's a showstopper. A killer of dreams, everything else. There's I call it self-sabotage, because you have to, in order to grasp your belief in something, you have to know how it happens. How is that going to work? How can that occur? I'm only here right now. How am I going to get there? And the real question isn't how. It's what. What happens from having that imagining that imagining that thought, imagining that thing. I love going there, and I love the idea of getting rid of the how, just eliminating it altogether. Who cares how? If I believe it and I fall in love with doing it, I can imagine it for myself. Then every opportunity will present itself to help me get there. I just have to recognize those opportunities, those people, those circumstances, that TV commercial or that billboard that you drive by every day. There's nothing that's by accident. It's the beautiful thing about life, and it energizes me. The thought of that energizes me. Just thinking about where I'll end up, and I don't concern myself with how. The people will come into your life. The circumstances will occur. If you believe in it strongly enough, if you love on it, the idea strongly enough, it's and there's a reason why you're doing it in the first place, why it resonates with you. So we have to kind of go with that. There's always a reason why it resonates with you. There's a lot of things that don't resonate with me, but I admire you for having the houses that you do and the things that go into that.
Thank you.
I've always said I'm not a landlord. I'm not a landlord. I'm not landlord material. I don't do that. I never have. I had a condo. It sat empty. I had a beautiful 3-story condo across the street from the beach. I let it stay empty because I didn't want to rent it out. Because more than anything, I thought to myself, the energy in this place is so good. I walk in the door. That was something everybody made, the comment everybody made. The energy here is fantastic. And I said, yeah, no. I spent a lot of time curating the energy of this place. The placement of items, the light, the way the light comes in, the brightness of it. It's just beautiful. I could sit there for hours in my own living room or in my office upstairs on the 3rd floor or my bedroom, anywhere else, and just not concern myself with anything else. And people say, oh, it's fantastic. And I didn't want people coming in there who didn't have the same level of energy or who had energy that was off and just messing up the energy in the place. I
came through.
Understand. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I don't even know if it's
well, and you curate the space, and you there are certain objects and things that you bring into it. I don't know if you have ever read anything by Robert Fulghum. He is an author, and he had in one of the books that was written, he talked about keeping a brick on his altar, and I think about that because I have lots of things that have a history love things with a history. And one of the things that he said, what the reason that he keeps a brick on his altar, he said at some point that brick was just earth. It was just earth. And then there was fire and water added to it, and it became a brick, and it was used in a building, and that building was somebody's home. And then that home, had a story to it. But eventually, as you said, you look at it, it starts to decay or whatever, and it's torn down. And then that brick is cast aside. And what happens to it? It becomes rubble. And does it wash away, or does it go back to being earth? And it's kind of the way that we are here on this planet. It's a metaphor for life. And so, when you curate space, like when I bring things into my space, there's an energy to it. There's something that has meaning to me, even though it's so silly. I bought a book the other day about, it was entitled, I want to say it's like Made by Love or Well Loved. So I apologize. I'll find the title of it. But it was a pictorial of people's teddy bears and their well-worn animals that were stuffed, that had been really worn, like barely threadbare, some of them. But they all had such beautiful energy. And the fact that this particular photographer photographed the age and the story behind them. I mean, I was like, oh my gosh. It was just, but it said something to me.
It's true. That is the beauty of curation. I like to say that there's not a thing. I have an office with a lot of stuff in it, a lot of very interesting, unique things, and someone could walk into my office and pick something up, and I could give them the story behind it. I can tell them the story, the energy of the story as to why I have it, why I own it. I just going into a store and buying something to fill a space is one thing, but every picture on the wall has a story. Every knick-knack that you see, every statue, every whatever has a story that goes along with it. And I've always done that. And so the idea of having somebody, we had a friend who bought a house, went away for 3 weeks somewhere. That's where it was. He got married, bought a house, went away for 3 weeks, and he had an interior design firm totally furnish his house, furnish their house before they returned in 3 weeks. Yeah, and it cost them like $150,000. And they literally walked out of the house and there was nothing in it. They walked back into the house and everything was there, from blinds to furniture to table, knickknacks. I mean, it was an interior design feast. And I'm like, the thought that went through my head is, what about the energy from those things? The energy of everything. Everything, the joy is in buying something. Is the story behind how you got it. To me, that's because your eye caught it, and then you loved it. You had an interest in it, and then you came to like it. Then you came to love it, and then you came to want it and have it. And the story of where you got it, how it got from where it was when you first saw it to where it is. I've got 3 Kachina dolls in here that I bought in Flagstaff, Arizona. In an art gallery, and that were made by Hopi Indians, and I can think back, and in my mind's eye, I can bring that whole scenario back to life as to where I found them, how I found them, and why I bought them. And that's to me that's the absolute beauty of it. And when you travel, I know people who travel, and they buy at least 1 or 2 little things that have a story behind, that have the energy. And a story behind why they got them. My mother's house is full of things like that. Everywhere we've ever lived. I have lots
of rocks that I pick up on the ground when I travel.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh yeah.
I bet they're fantastic looking too.
I can tell you where they're from. I know it sounds crazy, but I'm like, oh no, that's this one came from British Columbia and this one came from England.
Isn't that cool? Yeah. But that's love, as Carol said, love on something. Collective. Love on something. Find something to love on every day. Love on when you take a walk. love the smell of the air, love the things you see along the way, love the people that you meet. You don't have to say anything to them, but you can just shoot them a warm glance, say hello, and keep walking. Mm-hmm. All of that is important, and it becomes even more important as we get older. And it gives. I can't tell you exactly why it becomes important. I think that's pretty interesting and very individual to people. For me, I love connecting, and so mm-hmm. It doesn't matter how brief the connection. I like connecting, sending a smile someone's way, and making sure that they know that that they can feel that positive energy that's been sent to them. And I don't know. It's just one of those things.
It's
I thought
beautiful.
To bring this.
Beautiful.
Thank you, Tina. You come back to Tina Turner, and one of the things that we're talking about a life that one of the most amazing things is, as I said earlier, that her life wasn't. She made a comment that she was totally all right not going back on stage, not performing again. She was totally fine with that at a certain point in her life. She was all right with it. And that means that, again, I think it ties back to her Buddhism. She didn't feel like she needed to do that to be whole. Mm-hmm. And I thought that, to me, that's the most blessed thing that she said, to be that big of an icon and not, because there's a lot of entertainers, people in the public eye that becomes who they are, and they lose sight of who they really, the essence of who they are, and it becomes this thing, this persona. And when that persona no longer exists, they don't know who they are because they haven't continued to tap into those things that made them curious when they were younger, or things they had interest in. You asked me about certain levels earlier in our conversation. Music, I've made art. I can draw. I can sew. I can use this. I had a whole soft sculpture business back in the early 80s, late 70s, early 80s, where we made, myself and my partner, we made 7-foot high plants out of fabric. Nobody knows this about me. It's interesting. But I do have one picture where we brought everything together. I have that picture. The picture of the tropical plants and everything that we made that nobody could believe that they were all fabric, velvet and chintz and other things. And I love art. I don't paint per se. I haven't really sat down to paint, but I love the idea of someday sculpting. That really intrigues me. And because I know I have a lot of dexterity in my hands and always have, and probably that's the reason why I play the drums, and being able to use left half brain, right half brain, left foot, right foot, all at the same, left hand, right hand, all at the same time. Bring it all together, and people think it's easy. However, it is easy to those people who actually do it because it's second nature. I don't think I could teach somebody how to do it because, By the way, I'm going to leave you with this one thing. My golf game had kind of deteriorated over the past 2-3 months, and yesterday I changed one of the clubs in my bag, and it brought back a certain energy. Plus, I asked my guide to help me because it was my birthday, and I wanted to play really well on my birthday. So, I don't know. I was channeling a professional golfer who passed on. However, yesterday I shot the best score in golf that I shot in about 15 years.
That's fantastic! Congratulations.
Yeah, it is amazing. I was so, and it's always one step at a time. You can't get ahead of yourself. It's always one shot at a time, one stroke at a time, one putt at a time. It's always one foot in front of the other. And golf is not a game where you can run 4 miles around a course and actually expect to have played well. It's always one little movement at a time, one little movement at a time. Just like taking care of your little your new little kitties. It's what happens now, the feeding now that's important. It's not the end result.
Right.
They're going to grow up into wonderful little felines. However, it's paying attention to this moment. And that's what I love about golf. It's paying attention to this, and it's everything. This moment, And if I could leave the audience with one thing, I would simply say, kind of reiterate what I said earlier. Pay attention to how you feel about where you are, what you're doing, what you're involved in, and make decisions that are attached to joy and love and kindness. Joy and love, happiness. Make decisions based on that, instead of how much money, how many people, whether somebody else is going to like it or not. We make decisions based on all kinds of things that we shouldn't be making decisions about, and we should be focused on. And this is, I've come to understand what our guides really wants to do, is to focus on the happy thoughts, the joy. Does that thing bring me joy?
Right.
Does that thing make me feel loved? Does that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I was going to say, as you said it best, Michael, find something to love on. Because we are all joined and we are all connected to love, and you're absolutely 100% right. And
thanks for getting the name of the show in there, buddy. I love you did that. I love you did that. Yeah. Connect to love.
Grateful.
Exactly. Yeah. Appreciate it.
So grateful.
Until next time.
Until next time. Thank you.